Hello, good to see you. Time for our Saturday briefing, and I want to jump right into it today. At the end of this video, I'll have some announcements and different things for the region, and so those of you that I send this to by request and our donors, you're welcome. You don't have to go through that if you don't like, but if you want to, it'll give you a little idea of what's going on in the region and maybe allow you to pray for us better and know what your care and your support is doing. But for now, let's jump right into the lesson. I want to talk, I guess the tag, if I was putting a tag to this, it's about time. Just simply, how do we measure our time, and or how do we handle our time? And I want to talk to us about becoming investors. Think like investors. And I've entitled this lesson, A Meeting That Changed My Life. And so we'll talk about it. Let's jump right in. But think about how we talk about time. We talk about wasting time. I'm just wasting time, standing on the street corner, wasting time. It's kind of like driving down the road with a bundle of $100 bills and just letting them fly out the window. We waste time. We spend time. I'm spending time with someone. I'm hanging out with someone. We use that expression. We manage time. It's here. We're kind of holding on to it and keeping time from running off or something. So we manage time. Another way that we talk about time is we're doing time. And of course, we can refer to someone maybe being in prison, but we will often use that, I'm just doing time. I'll be so glad when this day is over, or this job is over, this assignment is over, and I'm here, but I'm just doing time. My heart's not in it. And so there's just different ways that we talk about time. But a great book on success, Success God's Way, written by Charles Stanley, he said, you cannot separate success from a wise use of time. I learned that lesson almost 40 years ago at a meeting that forever changed my life. I want to talk about it a moment, set it up here. I was meeting with my new boss. I was a part-time insurance salesman. I had taken an insurance job to help supplement my income as a pastor. I was bivocational at that time. So I went and met with the regional manager and went in his office and sat down. This was my first taste of, outside of church, an overseer or maybe a district overseer. This was my first taste of the corporate world of professionalism and business. And so honestly, it was a great experience for me. But I sat there, and this very successful man, he says, this is what I want you to do. He said, I want you, when planning your day, I want you to pay yourself $100 an hour. Wow. And this 40 years ago is still a lot of money. If you work an 8-hour day, that's $800 a day. I think we can all work that in. We could probably manage to scrape by on $800 a day. But he says, but man, can you imagine 40 years ago? He says, I want you to pay yourself $100 an hour. In everything you do, ask yourself, is this worth $100 an hour? And if it's not, then let someone else do it. Pay someone else to do it, and you go find something that's worth $100 an hour. That was a completely, I never thought in time or life, making decisions about my day in those terms. Pay yourself $100 an hour, and if what you're not doing is worth $100 an hour, pay someone else to do it, and you go find something that's worth $100 an hour. Completely foreign to me. And then he made this statement as an ancillary statement that goes with it. He says, if you'll practice that for the rest of your life, I promise you, you'll be able to afford to do that, to pay people to do what you don't want to do so that you can concentrate on something that you can do that's worth $100 an hour. I never forgot that. At that particular time, I was bivocational. I was pastoring. I was working this job. I had a wife. I had a son. I had some denominational responsibilities. I was serving on the youth board at that particular time, which those, God bless you, youth board members and youth director, that's a very hands-on responsibility. I wanted to have a life, things that I like to do. But I took that to heart, and I have from that day forward. There's hardly ever a day goes by that I don't think in those terms, that I don't consciously think, is this worth $100 an hour? And so my boss was teaching me something twofold. First, and this is a topic for another lesson, in a completely different lesson, but he was teaching me, you put a price tag on your life. Don't let others dictate what you're worth. But he was telling me, put a price tag on your life. I never thought about it. I was a minimum wage guy. That's the best. If I could make minimum wage, if I was just wanting to pick up a few bucks just so we could buy a better brand of bread, maybe. I was a minimum wage thinker. And he was saying, no, David, you put a price tag on your life. And he ramped it up into the stratosphere. I never even thought in those terms. $100 a week was almost what I made my first job. And so, man, that was fabulous. $100 an hour. He was telling me, you put a price tag on your life. And that's, I'd like to drill down on that, but that's a topic for another day. But the second thing he was teaching me is that to think like an investor when it comes to managing my time or spending my time or using my time. Think like an investor. In other words, think in terms, is what I'm doing going to give me a good return on my time? Is it going to give me $100 an hour return on my time? But more importantly, I've come to understand that what he was teaching me, he may not even have thought it in these terms, but is what I'm doing. Measure what you're doing in terms of, is this going to give me a good return on my life? That's all time is. Time is your life and my life broke down in segments. 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. And so I want you to think in those terms. Is what I'm doing every day as a pastor, and those that your pastors that we minister to, if you're watching this, but how, and you'll hear me use this term a lot, leverage my life. In other words, what can I do that will give me a greater return? What can I do that will be worth $100 an hour? That will cause me to do something when I look back over my life. Yes, I invested it well. I didn't just spend my life. I didn't just hang out. I didn't just do time, but I invested in my life that is worth something, $100 an hour. And so think about it. Let's think about, what are the characteristics of spenders? And I'm afraid if we're not careful, we will see ourselves in many of the things I'm going to say right here. But think of that. Just two things about spenders. They live to spend. Okay, spenders, they're always thinking about the next thing they're going to buy. That even when they save, they're saving to buy something. That's how spenders are. And their goal, and when you think about that in time, they get up in the morning and their goal that day is to be busy. They're spending time. I got this time. I don't want to be lazy. You may be a hard worker, but you're just spending time. There's no real connection. There's no real, I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the return I'm going to get on this. I just want to spend time. I want to stay busy. I don't want my people to think I'm lazy. And so we're just busy. We're spending time. We're doing time. We're managing time, but we're not investing time. Spenders think in terms of just spending. And people that spend time think in terms of just being busy. Spenders also think in terms of the now. Okay, well, I want this now. Instead of investors think about the future, spenders think about, what can I do now? I want this now. And when you put that in the life of a minister or a leader or anyone, when we put it in terms of time, it's what's urgent now. I've got this notification on my phone. I've noticed that emails come in, or I've got a backlog of emails, or I got all this mail here. I've got all this urgent stuff. I've got, Brother Joe, Sister Sally wants to see me right now. I mean, the world's going to come to an end if I don't drop everything I'm doing and go run into them, or let them come and do a drive-by and completely disrupt my life. And so they think in terms of the now, of the urgent. That's what spenders do. I want it now. And so the results? They're vulnerable to manipulation. They're not in control of their life. They've got more stuff than maybe they ever dreamed they'd have, but they don't realize it. But someone else put that desire. They're watching television, and they're watching these shows that compare their miserable, pitiful life with that glamour on TV. I want that. Or they go into the grocery store. Have you ever wondered why the milk is in the very back of the grocery store? Because they don't make money on milk, but they want you to go through all the chips and the dips and all the cookies and crackers and all the other stuff. And they're tempting you. They've got all these displays on the end of every counter, and you got to walk down the aisle, and there's stuff in the middle of the aisle, and the bakery is right at the front when you walk in. The bakery is there where you can smell it. It might be just right near, and you smell that fresh bread or the pastries. You got to walk through all that stuff all the way to get back to get your milk. Why? That they're counting on you being a spender, to not be thinking about your life, not thinking ahead. And so we're open to manipulation, and that's the same way in church work. We will be at the mercy of the next drive-by call, the next drive-by visit, the next time the mail drops, the next time the computer pings with an email, the next time the notification comes up on our phone that we've got to stop everything, even a meal with our family, and we got to check that. The first thing we do, we get up in the morning. Last thing we do, and everybody, all these outside influences are ruling our life. We're minimum wage living. There's a better way to do this. And that's to think like an investor. Think about the two, I've got three things about investors. Think about how investors think. First of all, they put their resources into the hands of others. Busy people that spend time, they're doing things. They're constantly doing things for others. But investors are spending their time helping others do things. They're investing in other people. An investor, you take your hard-earned money and you take a risk and you put it in a company, you put it in a project, you put it in a stock or a bond. You cast your bread upon the water. Okay, that's what Solomon said. Bread is not luxury. Bread is stuff that you could use now, but you postpone it and you cast it upon the water. You entrust, you are thinking about, how can I help others to become what they should be? I remember one of the best decisions I ever made in this area, in putting my resources and attention into helping others. I started bringing young couples into my home. Sanjay and I would work with 3 or 4 couples a year. And we just poured into them. And when you think long-term, investors think long-term. So we just poured into them. Then the next year we'd pour into another group, and we'd bring them in once a month. Sandra cooked for them. We'd sit around and a lot of times just talk about life. But I'd work in a little lesson, life principles. And then during the month, I'd stay in touch with them. And today, in that church, a lot of the leaders, the leading leaders now, those young couples grew up. And now they're the leading influencers in that church. A lot of those that came through our home, we invested into the future. That's what I'm talking about. Another thing about investors is they think in terms of getting a good return on their investment. $100 an hour mindset. Okay, what can I do with this hour? What can I do with this day? What can I do with this minute that will give me the greatest return? And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this right now, this Saturday briefing I do with you. It's because with this one thing that I'm doing, I can, at least theoretically, if all of my pastors will take the time to listen, at least theoretically, I'm going to help every one of you. When I live and work in a region this large, I may not see you but once or twice or 3 times a year. And with COVID, we've got camp meeting coming up. It'll be the first time that we've been in the same room, all of us, been in the same room in 2 years. And so if I've got to be one-on-one, but here's a way that I found, just like you on Sunday with the social media, you carry it on and you reach out and you're touching people. And so they think in terms of getting a return on my investment. If I do this, what's going to be the return? How's this going to advance the mission? How's this going to down the road make my church a church of greater influence, make my life of greater influence? How's this going to make people better? How's this going to contribute to people being saved and becoming passionate Christ followers, disciples? And so they're always thinking of getting return on their investment. They're not just hanging out. They're not just doing time, but they're thinking in terms of, is this the best use of my time? Am I going to get a great return on that? And then here's a third that we don't usually think of, but the great investors cut their losses. They cut their losses. They know that they can lose 2 out of 3. They can lose 7 out of 10, but just one good investment makes up for all the other. And one of the hardest things for people to do, one of the things that turns people off from investing, is when they make a bad investment and they lose, and the pain of that loss, the pain of the loss, psychologists tell us, is greater, much greater, disproportionately greater than the thrill of a win. And so we don't like to lose, but a good leader, someone that thinks, invests their life, they cut their losses quickly. I'll give you just an example in my own life. I remember one time I went to a new church, and this guy came in. He was the greatest thing. He was, "Oh, Pastor, I'm going to help you." And he made all these promises, and so I leaned on him, and he didn't come through. Okay, well, maybe something happened. And so a week or two goes by, he's going to come through again, and I leaned on him again. I was counting on him, and he wasn't there, and I was the one with egg on my face. Run the clock up maybe another month or so. And so this had gone on for a while, for a few months. And so one more time I leaned on him, and again, I'm standing there with egg on my face. That day, 3 strikes, it's one of my rules, 3 strikes and you're out. And I know people can change, but 3 strikes and you're out. And I was his pastor. I love him. I'm going to visit them in the hospital. I'll marry them. I'll bury them. I'll dedicate their kids. I'm going to preach. I'm going to try to preach my best sermons to them. But as far as getting an investment of my life beyond duty, I cut my loss. And eventually he drifted off, and because he wasn't committed. He wasn't committed. And we do that with people. We do that with projects. We do that with, we've got things that we do in our church. We just do it over because we don't want to have to pay the price of quitting or laying that we've just always done it that way. We don't want to lay it to rest. We don't think in terms of return, so we don't cut our loss. And so, but an investor, a good investor, takes a look at their assets. And is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my resources? And if it's not, if there's a better way, they cut their losses, and they cut them quickly. Now, here's the vital thing. We talk like this sometimes, and we don't. It sounds so unspiritual, but trust me, brothers and sisters, it is very spiritual. Jesus thought often like an investor. He spoke more of money than anybody in the Bible. And I could give you many different examples, but let me just give you one here. And you and I know this, but remember the parable of the talents? All the synoptic gospels talk about it. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they all talk about this. But the parable of the steward. And remember what happened to the one that just buried his talent? He said, Jesus gave this principle. He summed it up. I'll use Matthew's account. Matthew 13:12. He says, "For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him." What is Jesus saying there? Jesus is not into penny stocks. He doesn't invest in non-producers. He cuts his losses and he goes with the winners. Winners keep on winning and losers keep on losing. That's how investors know that. And so they find, they cut the losers, the loser companies, and they go with the winners. And that's how Jesus thinks. Here's another one. Mark 14:7, I'll give you another principle on how to spend your time. For Jesus said, for you have the poor with you always. And whenever you wish, you may do them good. But me, you do not have always. It was Napoleon who said, one of the secrets to my success is that I learn the importance of 5 minutes. In other words, moments matter. And Jesus was telling them, guys, don't miss this opportunity. Don't get distracted. The poor you have with you always. It doesn't mean that we don't care about the poor, but this is a moment of destiny. This is an opportunity. We can make an investment here that will have ramifications forever and a day. And so we invest our life, we invest our resources. We think like an investor. Now this is worth $100 an hour. Jesus has showed up. We're going to stop right here and treasure this moment and leverage this moment for something that's meaningful. What would happen if you spent the rest of your life doing things that were worth $100 an hour? What would your life look like? Here's a way that I couch this. Here's an application to leave with you. You can spend your life meeting needs, or you can spend your life planting seeds. Jesus talks about both. The poor you will have with you always. There's going to always be those spending things, meeting needs, answering emails, working through the emails and trashing the ones that's not worth anything in the junk emails, and working through the mail and dealing with people that are just takers. They're not givers. They'll just take and take and take and take, and they're just needy. They're just always needy. And we're here to minister to people. But spend most of your time, most of your efforts planting seeds. In other words, doing things that's going to give a return down the road. It may be carving out time when you're so tempted to, people need to think I'm busy. So we're out and about, we're going to meetings that are meaningless meetings, and we're showing up at things that don't mean a thing, and we're just busy work, and we're just doing time. It may mean that you carve out time to read a good book. It may mean that you carve out time to sit across the table on a regular basis with somebody that really is going to be a great leader someday. And you take what you've got and you hand it off to them and put it into them. They may outshine you someday, and that's perfectly fine because you are an investor. Let me close with this. Sandra gave me a great way to close today. I'm not sure if I even mentioned it, but we're in Rapid City in a motel room, another hotel room here, and we're in Rapid City. We're going to be with the Bowmans this afternoon. We're going to meet them for dinner, and Brother Rutland over at Union Center, just checking in on some of my pastors. We haven't been with the Bowmans since I installed them as a pastor, and I wanted to just come down and check on them. I had a Sunday that I could do that. And so Sanja, we're just kind of waiting till we go and have dinner here in a little bit. And so she made this statement: since I've got time on my hands, and I've just got through with this lesson, ready to start recording, and she was going to step out. And she said, since I've got time on my hands, and I thought, okay, what is she going to say? You guessed it. She said, since I've got time on my hands, I think I'll go shopping. Now, there's two things I want to say. Sometimes shopping, sometimes fishing, sometimes taking a nap, sometimes changing your own oil in your car is worth $100 an hour. If you enjoy it, and it may be the best thing you can do, is to take a break and rest. And recreation is recreation. Let God recreate in you joy and strength. That's how you endure for a long time. And so nothing wrong with shopping, but I was really proud of her. She said, since I have time on my hand, hands, I think I'll go shopping for door prizes for the women's retreat coming up in Montana. So she was, what a win-win. She's going to do something she enjoys doing, and she's going to do it in a way that'll give her a good return on her time. There's a way for you and me to do that. So spend the rest of your life measuring everything you do. Is this worth $100 an hour? If it's not, I want to pay someone. I want to find a way to help someone else do it, because it may be worth $100 an hour to them. And I want to let them pay them to do that. And I want to go find something that I can do that's worth $100 an hour. So there you go. There's my lesson today. A meeting that forever changed my life. God bless that regional manager. He had a huge impact. If you are a supporter of our region, God bless you. If you're a prayer partner of our region, or just a friend, I have, when in my travels, people ask to be added to the mailing list. God bless you for watching today. Keep us in your prayers. But you're welcome to sign off now. I'm going to talk a minute to just the ministers of the North Central region. So anyway, God bless you. But guys and gals, let me just run a couple things by you today. I have been just putting them in an email, but this you can't capture. It's hard to capture your heart in an email. So just one, I've been gone for a couple of days, and so I haven't checked my mail. But my mom emailed me. Dad got a ballot for the Assistant Director of Youth and Discipleship. And of course, we all know, unfortunately, the untimely death of Dr. Blair. And so, but thank God in our denomination, we have a system and we have a way to move forward. And so now we're voting for I'm sure we'll be getting, if you haven't already, you'll be getting a ballot as well. I want to encourage you to vote. Take the time. I'm not telling you how to vote. That's between you and the Lord. If you have any questions, you feel free to call me. But you are a part of this denomination of millions of people around the world, and it matters. And so you matter. Your vote and your voice matters. And so I want to encourage you to vote and send your ballot back in. But let me just run through just 6 things real quick. 6 things. In 18 days, we've got the Montana camp meeting, and all of you are welcome from all over the region. If you've never been to Kalispell, it's one of the most, that part of the region and that part of Montana is incredibly beautiful. It's up near, that's where Eureka, you know Brother Curtis and Stephanie McDuffie, they're about an hour away, a little further north. And it just, you may want to stay over and go to either one of those churches. It's just a great region up there, great part of the region. And it'll be at the Kalispell Church. But in particular, our Montana pastors and ministers, I do want to give you a cordial invitation. It's been a good while since we've all been together, and we need that. And I know several of you are bivocational, and so I have just about all the meals, if not all the meals, will be provided for you. We've got, it'll start on the 13th, which, if I remember right, is a Thursday night. And after church, I'll have some refreshments, and then I've got lunch on Friday, and then we'll have some refreshments on Friday night after church. And then Sandra's feeding the ladies at the women's retreat on Saturday morning. And men, I've got a room reserved at the hotel where I'm staying, and we'll bring in some food for you there as well, and we'll have some meeting, and we'll meet and fellowship there. So and then most hotels that you stay in will have a breakfast, and so just about all your meals will be provided for, and that will help you. And if you are in need of assistance, I've had some pastors outside the region that love us and care about us, and so they've given me a few dollars, and so you let me know. I won't, between you and me, it's just important for you to be there, and you'll be blessed for it. It'll be a good investment of your time. So if you need some help, you let me know. And then for the first time, at least in many, many, many years, as far as I can tell, but we have a South Dakota Teen Talent. And we have a Montana Teen Talent. Matter of fact, this weekend, right? Maybe as I'm speaking, it's been very important to me, this large region. If we expect all of us to come to one place, as much as I'd love for us to be able to do that, it's not reasonable. And so we've got a Montana camp meeting. We've got a Montana youth camp. We've got Montana Teen Talent. And well, we're doing the same thing in South Dakota. We've got a South Dakota Teen Talent in 26 days. May 21, Pastor Chris will have a youth rally that night. And then on the 22nd, if I understand it right, and so it'll be at Aberdeen. And so I encourage you to be involved in that. And then the Dakota camp meeting will be in Minot at the Eagles Wings Church in 58 days. And again, the Montana brothers and sisters are welcome, and of course the Dakotas, and encourage you to make plans to be there. We have a great week planned there. And then the Montana youth camp is coming up and in June. And then the Dakota camp, I had the dates wrong for the Dakota camp because I forget now something that they had to change the dates, and I had the old date. It's July 26th through 30, and I'll send this to you. That's 92 days away. And then in the fall, the October 21 through 23, right here in Rapid City, we have the Ministers and Spouse Retreat. So those are just a few things. And so guys, I've been working on a sermon. I always wanted to hear from my overseer, and hopefully you want to hear from me at camp meeting. And I see myself, I want to hear from my pastor. Well, I try to treat this job like a pastor, and I do love and care for you. And I'm working on a sermon for Montana, and probably the same for the Dakota camp meeting as well. And I've just been thinking about you a lot, and what's the word that I could preach. And I don't want to preach my sermon, but I want to talk about courage. And you guys and gals have showed me so much courage, especially the last 12 months. It's just been incredible what you've gone through. And it takes courage to minister out here. And I honor you, and I'm proud of you. And so I'm not going to admonish you to have courage. I'm going to encourage you to keep your courage, because you've got courage. You've got amazing courage. And so I'm going to talk to us about courage, unless the Lord changes my mind. But I love and honor you, wish you well. And eventually, I will be coming around the bend, coming to your place. And in the meantime, let's all keep running to win. God bless you.